Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Into It with Gila. I'm Gila Glassberg, your host, registered dietitian, and certified intuitive eating counselor. And today I have on Elisheva Berkovits. Hello, Elisheva.
Hi, Kayla.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming on again.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so our first episode was amazing, and we all learned a lot. And now we are going to record a second podcast, and we're going to talk about somatic therapy, and we're going to actually it will be a little bit more experiential, like we'll talk about what's going on
Great.
um about what's going on in my life a little bit, and then you could kind of guide me through what you would do with a client, I guess. But like we said before we started recording, that obviously I'm not going to share everything going on in my life, but I will be as honest as I could be on camera.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay, so how would you recommend starting?
So we can start wherever you're at, just taking a moment, taking in your space, taking in my space. So I'm just checking if our distance feels okay because I know we're on Zoom. Is there any adjustments you need to make on your end?
Well, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna just try to get into like the mode of like this. Um, no, I like Zoom. It's a safe distance, actually.
Okay, do you need me to make any adjustments? Like, can you see me well?
Yeah, you look great.
Okay. Well, this is, you can always tell me if something's not okay for you, preference, distance. It's your call.
Okay, good to know.
So just taking a moment, and if you can look around your space or my space, and taking notice if there's anything that kind of pulls you in or calls your attention.
Um, so is this like meaning like in a negative or positive way, or even like a neutral way? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Generally, what we're trying to do, and then we're going to try to get less cognitive.
Yeah,
And I kind of jumped in, so I'm appreciating that, like, you're just like, wait, what's going
yes,
on?
yes,
What are we doing? Why are we doing this?
yes,
Um,
totally.
so I'm going to guide you through just an experience. Um, what we're trying to get is to your calmest self at this point.
Okay.
Okay. So just, you know, unlike traditional therapy where we jump in to like, where are you at? What's going on? Like, let's dive straight into the muck.
Mm-hmm.
We actually regulate ourselves first because somatic therapy can go very deep very quick.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of need a point of reference where we can go back to and ground ourselves if we need.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So now I'm going to guide you. And then I guess you can always stop and ask questions.
Okay.
Um, but for it to feel a little bit more natural, I want to see if we can get through a process and then explain it after, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
I'll try my best.
And I'm
That's
appreciating also that it's really hard to not have your cognitive brain like,
yeah,
what's going on? Why are we
yeah,
doing it?
yeah.
Oh, and that's totally part of us. And that's we don't force it out of the room. It's
Mm-hmm.
and a piece that is also, I just wanted like a disclaimer, is that we've never done anything like this before. And so there's very much getting used to your client and the client getting used to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what I'm able to pick up on certain clients, I'm not going to be able to do it automatically by you. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
certain pieces that I can kind of check in and see where you're at. And I do check-ins as well. But as somebody becomes more and more comfortable in the therapy room, and as I get to know my clients, also get to know their facial expressions. I also get to know where their go-tos are, either in their space or my space. I also get to know like certain nuances that like we can laugh about even.
Mm-hmm.
of like I can even say, "Where'd you go?"
Mm-hmm.
And the client would be like, "Oh, you realize I wasn't here." I'm like, "Yep,
Right.
and you were not here." Right? So I may not pick up on that right now. Um, and so I might be doing a lot more check-ins with you of
Mm-hmm.
just checking in where you at. Okay.
Makes sense. Wait, sorry, one more question.
Sure.
The first session with a client, do you do this right away, or it's like more the second? Like you first have to like explain and make sure they're comfortable, or the first session right away?
So it really depends on what's needed. There's
Mm-hmm.
no protocol of like this is exactly how I do it because
Mm-hmm.
every client's so different. Every person's needs are so different. Um, the somatic work stays the same. It's just a matter of how and when and in what way.
Got it.
So most of the time I'm explaining because most people don't know what somatic work is. So a lot of times I'm explaining before we do anything, right? So like our part one was some of that explanation that I give to clients of what is somatic work? How does it work?
Mm-hmm.
How does it work? Do we have any questions? Um, and clients ask questions all the time of like, wait, what was that? How did
Mm-hmm.
that work? Why does that make sense? And it also depends if somebody is more in tune with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was actually thinking this morning, like, there's so much overlap in so many modalities,
Mm-hmm.
different ways of therapy. Um, I would even say, like, in every field, we're going to have overlap into other fields,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, an OT who's working on executive functioning skills can overlap with a therapist that's working with executive functioning skills,
Right.
can overlap with what a BCBA is doing with
Right.
executive functioning skills, right? Because we're all working with the same system. So, there's no way that there wouldn't be overlap,
Right.
right? Because we're all working with the brain, we're all working
Right.
with the nervous system, we're all
Right.
working with our cognitions, our right brain, our left brain. That's, it's the same mechanism.
Right.
Everybody's story and situation is different,
Right.
right? Everybody's needs are different, but there's no one way,
Right.
right? So the same way I was thinking about like intuitive eating and therapy or somatic work, and I was just appreciating that there's just so much overlap,
Yeah, there is.
right? Like intuitive eating gets you in tune with your hungerfulness, your feelings, emotions, and really being okay with that feeling and emotion, like being able to sit with it,
Mm-hmm.
being able to be okay with it. Um, and a lot of somatic work is exactly that.
Okay,
Whereas
so
a lot
let's do
yes.
it. Sorry.
Okay.
Really anxious. Okay.
So just taking a moment, noticing your space or
Okay.
my space. Just noticing if there's anything that you need right now. Like, and then noticing your surroundings. Noticing if there's anything that kind of pulls your attention. You can take your time.
Okay.
And when you find that spot, just if you could stay with it, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Just noticing if it's something that you look at, noticing its colors, its shape, maybe noticing something that you haven't noticed about it before. Just staying with it if that feels okay for you. Just checking inside, like what's letting you know that that's the space. What's going on inside as you look at it.
Should I tell you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can, or if you feel comfortable sharing, that's where you
Yeah.
can just notice.
Okay. I think I'm going to tell you. Easier for me.
Sure.
I'm actually looking at a picture, two pictures of me and my sister, Sima.
Okay.
Um, but I also have a letter here from my mom, like a few months before she died. But I like quickly like when you said something, I don't remember what you said, but I quickly like when you said like what color or like notice the color like what drew you here. So first of all, I can't really see my mom's letter. I must have like hid it somewhere, but it's somewhere in here. Um, and second of all, it's easier to talk about my sister than my mom. So that's what drew me to that.
Yeah. So just staying with the picture for a moment, just noticing what happens inside as you stare at it and notice Sima, yourself, others, the shape. And just noticing what you sense inside as you look there. Now just checking in what you're noticing inside.
Um, okay. So I'm noticing that when we started the call, like I felt very anxious in my stomach. I
Mm-hmm.
still feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's funny, the picture is like conjuring up a lot of like positive memories of when we went away for a night, but it's also like reminding me why we went away. So there's like a sadness, like I'm feeling
Yeah.
both. Like
Yeah.
I'm feeling like we're both smiling and like really happy, and it was really like a nice getaway, but it was also like because like I wasn't like coping so well after my mom died. So it was like so necessary. And I remember feeling like, oh, this was way too short.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't enough time to like, I mean, there's never enough time to heal, but especially it was like very within the first year, I think. So it was like so not enough, you know?
Right. So I'm wondering if we could tap into both and just notice it, right? Noticing the positive memories, kind of holding it in one hand,
Should I still look at the picture? Sorry for asking.
whatever you'd like. There's no rules.
I'm gonna keep looking at it.
Go right ahead. You know what you need. And just noticing the positive memories. Also holding the sadness. Yeah. Just noticing what that's like to hold both together.
Okay. Should I share or you don't want me to?
We don't need to do this on a cognitive level. You can
Right.
share as much as you want or as little as you want. There's no need.
It's hard for me not to share. And also you're my friend, so um but is it better? Okay, I'm gonna ask you later, but I want to know. Like, I feel like it would help me to share, so that's why I would share.
Just go ahead. You know what you need.
Okay, so I'm feeling like it's uncomfortable actually to hold both of those feelings.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like a little depressing to say out loud that like the sadness is so much more than the happiness, which just makes me more sad because it was like really truly like we both look so happy in the picture and like it was a momentary happiness. Like it was so, like it's so fleeting. Like I was thinking as I was saying it before that like there's really nothing that you need in the first year or two because nothing will really help you. I mean, some things will make it like a little less sharp the pain, but like really not, you know, if you can't
Mhm.
escape the pain.
Right.
So it's like gratitude that I have my sister and all my siblings, like so much gratitude that
Hmm.
that she's such a good big part of my life, and connects me to my mother.
Yeah.
But sadness that like it has to be that we had to do that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering when you're thinking about the gratitude, right? And thinking about how grateful you are to have her. You check inside. Would it be okay to notice where you're sensing the gratitude?
Um, I actually feel it in my heart, the
Okay.
gratitude in my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Would it be okay if we stayed with that for a moment?
Sure, I could do that. Should I put my hands on my heart.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah. Just noticing what happens as you lean into it, feeling that gratitude.
It's so hard for me to do that.
It's hard. Yeah. It's not natural. So just we're staying for as long as we can. And we can come
Okay.
right
Okay.
back. Okay. Doesn't have to be a long time. It's just noticing, right? Getting in touch with
Yeah.
it.
I'm having a hard time doing it on camera because I feel like if I would really do that, it would be way more emotional, and I'm not going to go there. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's your system, really. Like it
Right.
knows what it needs and it's saying, okay, this is
Right.
my max of what I can do now.
Right. That's what I'm
Totally.
feeling. Yeah.
That's totally fine. Okay. So I'm wondering if there's a place that you think of as in like when you think of it, it's like, ah, I'd love to go there. When you think of it, it's like
Oh,
pleasant.
any place? Any place?
Any place. Any
Um,
place, either imagined or real.
oh, I could tell you a place.
Which
Should
is
I think it?
sure.
Santa Barbara by the beach. It's so beautiful.
Wow.
But it's like it's not just a beach, It's like
Mm-hmm.
clear waters, like it's magical. Like it's beautiful. It's like happy town.
Mm-hmm.
Like we went there once and it was like really and also I guess like yeah, it was actually before my mom died. So it was more like
Yeah.
real joy, like full vacation, not
Yeah.
just like partially trying to survive. So
Yeah.
I am thinking of that. I always think like if I can't go to Israel, like the next place that I would want to go back to is Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just taking a moment, noticing the colors, place, and just noticing inside what happens as you think about it.
Yeah, I can't do it on camera either. But I'm noticing that if I probably would do it, it would help me get into like a relaxed state, but I can't do that right now.
You can feel the fullness. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's totally fine. So as much as you can, right?
Yeah.
And just noticing what happened inside as you thought about it. Right? Just even talking about it,
Yeah.
what that does for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it normal that it also brings up some like a lot of sadness?
Anything we're going to touch upon is going to bring up whatever's going on for us.
Okay. Interesting.
So that, like, it's hard to tease out one and not the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more you do it,
Mm-hmm.
the more you're flexing that muscle of, I
Mm-hmm.
can tease it out because I know I'm going to get to it.
Interesting.
Right. But our system doesn't let us like forget about something fully. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm here. Like, don't
Yeah.
forget about me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's really normal.
Okay, good. Good to know.
So I'm wondering if you could just take a moment and check in just on the sadness for as long as that feels okay. And then we're going to come right back. Just noticing the intensity and where you sense it. And then as soon as it feels like, oh, I'm done, come right back.
Yeah, it's very intense actually.
Very intense. Yeah. So I'm going to do something called pendulation. Okay. I'm going to have you to take a moment, think about Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Just hold that sensing it for as long as it feels okay. Noticing where you're sensing it, noticing the intensity. And then as soon as it feels like okay, we're going to go back to that sadness. So noticing inside where you're sensing the sadness. As soon as it feels too much, we're going to go straight back to Santa Barbara. Just
Wow.
again, colors, happiness, beauty.
I'm still in the sadness.
You're still in the sadness.
Yeah, because I could still tolerate it. I'm not crying. I just need to share. Okay,
Sure.
I'm gonna stay in the sadness because it's like bringing up some interesting thoughts.
Okay, so just staying with that, you know what you need. So noticing if there's any memories or where it brings you back to.
Okay, I'm getting out of the sadness now. Okay.
Okay, so going back to Santa Barbara, noticing the colors around you, Venus, being there for as long as you need. And noticing if you can stay there if there are thoughts that are going on.
Yeah, I can't stay there.
And that's okay. We can notice our thoughts and then come right back and try again. Just go back to Santa Barbara.
Go back.
Yeah, if we can, if it feels okay for you. All right, so noticing for staying.
I could do it. I could stay.
Okay. It's just maybe listening to the sounds and the sensations. Maybe noticing the weather.
The weather's perfect.
Wow.
I'm having a memory like that like I think about sometimes that we had bikes like in the villa that we rented. There was like bikes and I love to bike, but they were like really cool, fun, like old school bikes. And we
Yeah.
biked around the whole city. It's like not so big.
Wow.
And yeah, and at one point we were like, when there's like a road for bikes and like on a busy street, like
Hmm.
busy underpass. And I was like, we can't do this. Obviously, we can't do this. We have to walk our bikes. And of course, my husband's like, no, no, it's fine. There's a lane. I was like, I can't ride my bike at 20 miles an hour next to a car. And he's like, no, you can't. And I remember thinking like it was like as scary or more scary than being on a roller coaster because there's like real danger, but it was also, and I remember thinking, I have children, what am I doing? And then thinking like how exhilarating it was, like the wind in your hair, not that my hair was showing, the wind in your face, and like how I did it. I was so scared, but I did it. But it was like the combination of like being on vacation and like having fun and like doing something that you're afraid of
Yeah.
and not knowing. So like I woke up in the morning and I'm like, I'm gonna bike down the hill.
Right.
So it's just like a really fun memory that I have.
Hmm. Hmm. And even as you're telling this to me, just noticing what that does.
I'm still having a lot of like sadness mixed in. It's hard for me to separate it,
Yeah.
but it is like positive to reminisce, but it's still,
Mhm.
I think it's also because we're on camera. Like if we weren't on camera, I'd probably be able to but I
Uh,
don't want to also. Like I
right,
wouldn't want to do that. So
right. So just noticing if we can bounce back and forth, right? The exhilaration of like that wind in your face, that feeling, and the sadness. Playing around with that for a moment.
like think about the happiness and then the sadness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just that moment of biking and that wind in your face, the exhilaration, and going to the sadness. Right back to the exhilaration of that wind. Noticing the air in your face, fun, the adrenaline. Would it be okay if we go back to that sadness for a moment?
Hmm.
Just noticing that sadness and noticing inside where we're sensing it. Then we're going to go right back to that like fun, the air in your face, exhilaration,
The beach,
the beach.
the kosher iced coffee bean.
Oh, wow. Coffee bean.
Um, the tiles, the it's like has a Spanish
Wow.
flair.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Like even like the Chase Bank, all the time, like everything on the like, strip of stores is the same beautiful tiles. Like you're like, this is my vacation spot. People like live here and they go to that Chase Bank.
Wow. Sounds
Yeah,
like a picture perfect.
it is picture perfect.
Just taking that in for a moment, that like picture perfect. The tiles, the palm trees.
The first vacation that we ever took. That's also like probably why everything was more exciting for me.
So exciting. Just taking that all in. Staying there for as long as it feels great and as long as you need.
What'd you say?
Let me know if you're ready. I'm
Okay,
back
fine.
here.
I was enjoying that happy moment.
Do you want to go back?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So, would it be okay if we check in on the sadness again? Knowing that we come right back to that picture perfect as soon as we need.
Yeah.
Okay, so going ahead, you know what to do. Noticing that sadness, noticing where we sense it inside, noticing the intensity. There's a memory that comes up with it.
It's actually like less intense, and I don't want to go back there now.
You know what you need. And just noticing how we were able to send something, go back and forth, and it gets less intense.
Less intense, but also more resistance. I'm
You
feeling.
really don't want to go back there.
Right.
Your system knows what it needs right now. So just checking in if you want to go back to the picture perfect for a moment.
It's hard now. It's harder for me to do that.
Okay. Would you want me to guide you?
Yeah.
Okay. So just taking a moment, noticing the tiles, the first vacation, the chilled vibes or atmosphere, waking. Noticing the colors, the weather.
I'm remembering the whole vacation. Some of it was in like LA and
Mm-hmm.
some of it was in Santa Barbara, which LA is also beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like remembering like all the colors, the green and like the perfect weather, you know?
Wow. Wow. So just checking in with you where you're at right now.
Um, um, I really want to share with you my cognitive brain. That's where I am.
Okay. There's no rules.
Um, right, there's no rules. Um, it's interesting, like I think my brain is much more of a negativity bias. I guess like everyone has that, but I feel like I do have that a little bit stronger than average because I'm
Mm-hmm.
a four. But so like noticing that like in real time is like hard because it's like really hard to be positive when your brain tells you to be negative, but also really powerful that like when I continued to try to stay positive, I didn't want to go back to sadness, which is very rare for me.
Wow.
Appreciating that like if I try or I am guided, I could actually stay in a positive space.
Right. And no one told you, like, stay in the positive space. There was
Right.
no cognitions. It was this, like, sounds like your system knew this is where I want to go. This is where I want to stay.
Only after like a few times going back and forth.
Right. It's not, you're flexing a new muscle.
Right. Right.
But there's this knowing, like, no one can tell you in that moment of where to be. You knew where you needed to be.
Right. I feel like I could like go back to that. Like not always, but like at least I know it's there that I could, when I'm feeling negative about something, I could actually like if I don't want to say try hard enough, but if I could like stay in the sadness for long enough, I could pull the happiness, like the positive out of it,
Yeah. And you
hopefully.
created a resource for yourself, right? The more we lean into a memory, the more we lean into anything, it can be our resource that when I see Santa Barbara, right? Just noticing what happens to you as you just saying that word can bring stuff up.
Are we done with the demo? Are we out of it? Take me out of it.
Sure. So just checking in if it's okay to land here as far as the demo goes.
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
That's all I could take for today.
That's that's completely fine.
Um, okay. So is that how you would wrap it up?
I always wrap up with checking in, and the client can check in and see if it's okay for them to kind of land there.
Hmm. So would you say like that would be would that be like a typical session that would last like the full, whatever, 30 minutes, 45 minutes?
Yeah, so I definitely sped it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Also, different people need different things, right? But that's generally when it comes to, creating what we call resources. So we create resources, can be anything that brings, a sense of calm or positivity or um, settledness or really anything. Anything can be a resource for somebody, right? So we try to bring up like either positive memories, positive places, things in our environment, um, and that we make that a resource, right?
Hmm.
So just like you said, like if I think of it, right, it can bring up so much,
Hmm.
right? I can think of Santa Barbara and I can think of like, wow, like that was so exhilarating, so amazing, right? And that's your resource that can go with you wherever you are.
It's just so funny that like the way my brain looks at such a positive experience is that like the sadness that it's over, which is probably normal, I'm assuming. Like if let's say like you ask a client like remember like go to like a memory that's like let's say somebody would say their wedding day or some people would not say their wedding day, their first
Right,
giving birth, um not seeing a friend for like some going to Israel for the first time, so it's like 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 giving you that like real sensation of happiness, but I can't
right,
imagine that it wouldn't also bring up sadness that it's over. I don't know, some people probably
right.
not.
So if memories are not something that we could really go to,
Hmm.
you were okay with staying there,
Right,
right? But like, I don't know if you noticed that, like, you looked at your picture and there was a lot of sadness there,
right.
right? There was like the feelings that were coming up for Sima and the gratefulness. And so I kind of shifted to like
Got it.
place,
Got
right?
it.
And so what we do is that early on we try to come up with resources that are neutral. You
Uh-huh.
were okay, and as somebody who's worked on themselves, I felt comfortable with you staying in your sadness and being okay with that. You knew what
Hmm.
you needed,
Hmm.
right? But at first, there are times where like we can't, if memories are too triggering, so we're gonna just stay right here, right now. Could we notice something in our space that feels good enough? Okay.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be like amazing and positive, but that it's okay, good enough,
Hmm.
and just noticing what that good enough feels like,
Right.
right? And creating things that it can be a smell,
Hmm.
right? It can be our favorite food.
Hmm.
It could be a taste. Anything that engages us could be a resource. And then we
Hmm.
can use it as a way to like when I need to ground myself and hold space or make space,
Hmm.
I could do that.
Actually, I tell me what you think about this. What came up for me when we went back to the sadness for some, I don't remember exactly which time, was that like the IFS memory of like, when you notice like yourself, like self and then the parts. So like um and a lot of clients have told me this, that like the sadness part is like you see yourself as like a little girl like huddled in a corner crying. So like I had
Yeah,
that sort of like pop into my head. Like it wasn't there like the whole time. And also like because this is like, being recorded, I was like, okay, we're not gonna go there. But like
Right.
interesting to notice it.
Yeah. And the more we notice, the more we can go deeper.
Hmm.
Right. And the same thing for the positive. So, like, while I was guiding you through, first it was just Santa Barbara Beach.
Hmm.
And then you remember the bike ride. And then
Hmm.
you remember the exhilaration. And then you remember the colors and the tile and chase. Right. It was as if your like view started like really
Right.
small and got
Right.
bigger and bigger and bigger. And you were able to take in more of that feeling.
Right.
Right. And that works both ways with positive and negative.
Right.
Our nervous system won't let us take in more than what is safe for us. Right. If we take in too much, then we can shut down.
Right.
Right. And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes we
Hmm.
do shut down.
Right.
Right. It's our nervous system protecting us.
Right.
Right. It's I don't know. When I think about our nervous system, I think of like, I went on a total tangent there of like, Hashem created our systems to protect us in whatever way that's going to look. Sometimes we don't like the way it protects us,
Right.
right? We have a lot of feelings towards that whole system.
Resistance.
It could be resistance, it could be disgust, it could be anger,
Right.
whatever it is, right? Whatever we've experienced. That ultimately, like our system has been programmed to keep us the safest we can at every point in our life, right? Whether it means that we go into feeling really anxious and overwhelmed and, do, right? Or if
Yeah.
it's like I need to shut off all my emotions so that I can just cope.
Right. It's an interesting thing, like not to get too like religious or like theoretical, like philosophical, but I have a little bit of an issue with it in terms of like Hashem made such an amazing world to amazing like nervous system to protect us because the things that protect us also really hurt us. So like in my mind, I would think we would be a little bit more maladaptive in a positive way, meaning like I just know this from you and people who I've spoken to, therapists and books and stuff, that like that's like really the whole IFS model is that like even though we're like stonewalling or we're shutting down or we're really anxious, like obviously that's because like in our childhood like we had to not show emotions otherwise we were hit. So I
Right.
wish like people go to years of therapy or to try to figure like it was trying to help me. I wish it was. Obviously I don't run the world, but I'm just saying for me there's like obviously I'm focusing on the negative, but there's like a pain point that like you would think the protective system would be a little bit more protective. Does that make sense?
I'm going to tease it out for a moment because what I'm hearing you say is like, if only it would be more like cushiony and pleasant when it's protecting us.
Not just cushiony and pleasant, but like actually like make us feel better. Like actually be like, oh yeah, I just like maybe like a little bit more naturally noticing like I guess that's what a therapist does, but I'm
Well,
saying
that's what somatic work does. It's that I
mm,
could re-experience sensations and be okay with that sensation.
that's very interesting.
Because when we experience sensations, we're also experiencing cognitions, right?
Right.
And so
Hmm.
it's not the sensation that's making us say, that's bad, that's awful. There's the cognitions that come along with that, like, oh, I don't like that. Or
Right.
the people around us and the way they respond to our system responding,
Yeah. Right.
right? Like, and you were just saying this, like the lollipop to the 3-year-old is just as
Yeah.
exciting as the diamond ring to the
Funny
19
or
year
whatever. Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
right? The way, and not to put a guilt trip. This is
Right.
not for guilt. This is just education. the way we respond to that 3-year-old in their tantrum is just as painful as somebody when we're adults saying, you shouldn't be feeling that way.
Mm-hmm. Probably worse as a kid, no?
Um, I don't know. I would have to go into a child's brain to really experiencing it. But yeah, like that's where they build these beliefs about themselves. And that's where
Right.
these cognitions come along with, right? When I have that, it's yuck,
Right.
right? When I have
Yeah.
this, not acceptable.
Right.
When I respond this way, it's the worst thing ever,
Right.
right? And then as we get older, we also build these schemas of trying to understand the world, right? And from a child's perspective, they need to hold on to the fact that the adults in their life are their protectors and the be it and end all and are right.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we flip those beliefs against ourselves to make sense because that's all what we're doing. Is trying to make sense of the world. We always do this. This is how we're created to make sense of things, right? Because we always ask this what, where, why, when. Whenever something happens that we're like, huh?
Right.
Right? That we can't understand. So we're always asking questions because we're making sense of it. That's how our brains were wired.
Right.
And so as a child, we're asking those questions too, maybe not without knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, why else would an adult treat me that way?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it must be because I'm the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It must be because of me. If
Mm-hmm.
I was more da 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 da, then they wouldn't do that.
Right.
If I did X, Y, and Z, or if I was, that wouldn't happen. Right. And that's when our nervous system and our cognitions get like kind of fused together.
Right.
Right. And as we grow, it's more fusing and more fusing and more fusing.
Right.
Right. So then the way in which we all of a sudden look at the world is through a different set of lenses, a different pair of
Mm-hmm.
glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so you can have a bunch of kids coming out of the same home or a bunch of people experiencing the same experience. But they experience it so differently because of all that, because of
Mm-hmm.
the that they wear.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Um, so we said, but you were saying before about like the overlap with like, therapy and intuitive eating or like whatever. So let's say here, somatic therapy and intuitive eating. So or like we don't have so much time, but I want you to okay, let me explain to you why I thought it was really fascinating because somebody told me that she like enjoyed working with me, but it was way too cognitive for her. And she ended up working with a somatic therapist. And she's like, it's totally changed my relationship with food and my body. And we don't even talk about my body or food. And I was like,
Yeah.
and then I was like, well,
Right.
she was a somatic and she's always talking about blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of did have that aha moment. Like, I wouldn't say it was like an aha moment. It was more like years and years of doing intuitive eating where I was like, knowing that the hardest part of intuitive eating for people is accepting the fact that their body will not be skinny potentially
Yeah.
and having to they could try to accept it but they might not accept it actually, so they might like know cognitively like my weight is not my worth and I don't have to lose weight in order to fit in, and if I do then that obviously those friends are not friends that I need, blah blah blah, all the cognitive stuff,
Right.
but the ability to actually accept your body or accept that you're at a party and everyone's eating salad and you really are more in the mood of pasta or you're really much more hungry, so can you walk me through a little bit like the how maybe somatic therapy could help someone with like let's say body image or
Right.
intuitive.
Right. So, somatic therapy, none of the sessions look per se the same. And we work through things in various different ways. Um, Sorry, my mind's going in like a million different places, and I kind of gotta
No
like,
problem.
just take a moment. Um,
You have time. You're good.
there's a few different ways that a somatic therapist can work through something, right? And just like you say, like what's underneath the experience is usually emotions, it's usually other stuff.
Okay.
And if we're able to process the other stuff, other things fall into place. So it's not like, oh, we need to address everything. And if we don't address everything and delve in,
Right.
then we're not pulling it apart.
Right.
Right. There's a very big respectfulness about somatic work. Right. And I don't know what that person's experience was like. So I can't speak to her experience and what that therapist may have done because I don't know. And I will
Right.
never know.
Right.
Right. It might mean that she was tantruming on the floor
Right.
because she had to tantrum and that had to be okay. And she had
Right.
to tantrum in a space that she was unconditionally positive regarded, and that was okay.
It's so foreign it's not foreign to me because I know, but it's foreign to me as a child who I'm not saying anything bad about my parents more generationally that like tantruming was considered very bad. So like I
Absolutely. And to this
yeah.
day, you have people, I've heard so many things that like, chutzpah, how do you let her talk that way to you?
Right, right,
And in my mind, it's like, well, what's behind the behavior?
right,
Not a bad kid. Like, she's not looking to be chutzpah,
right.
right? And the way in which we parent nowadays is so different, right? Like,
So different. Oh my gosh.
I'm the youngest, right? And
Right.
so when my siblings look at the way I respond to my kids when they say certain things, right? And you know exactly what
Well,
I'm
you are a
talking about.
therapist. You are a therapist, so it is a little bit different. But
It
yes,
is a little bit different, but I'm also understanding why that child is doing what they're doing,
right. Yeah, and you have
right?
a lot of
I'm also
patience.
human. I'm also human.
Right.
I'm putting it
Yes.
out there. I have my moments. I
Yeah.
lose it. I
Yeah.
think about how many times like my kids are going to have to work through things in therapy because of things I may have said or done. Okay. And I'm okay with that. Right.
Right.
Thank God there are plenty of great therapists there. And when my kids want to work through things, they can. And I'll be happy to fund it. Um,
That's funny.
yeah, my kids will be looking at this in like 20 years from now.
I know. I know.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but I'm able to really take myself out of it. Right? It's not me. It's not about
Right.
me.
Right.
Right? This is totally going on a different like parenting piece here.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing we're digressing, but you know, when we're able to take ourselves out of it in that way, right? So the same thing, like a therapist, it's not about me.
Right.
It's about my client's experience and what they're needing in this moment.
Right.
Right? Totally not about me.
Right.
Right? Your system knows what it needs. Who am I to impose that you have to do it a certain way?
And
Right?
that's what
Yeah.
intuitive eating is about. Who am I to tell you that this food is going to make you healthy or this food is going to make you full? That's not my job.
Right. Right. My job, and this is where we're both going to agree on, is that my job is to take you where you need to go.
Right.
Right. And allow you to do it safely in a way that
Right.
feels okay. So I might slow you down.
Right.
Right. We might not go there so quickly because that would be too much. Right. I might check in more with you, like just checking in. Right. And then you were able to tell me, I actually want to stay in the sadness a little bit. Right? Go right ahead. You could stay there as
Right.
long as you feel it's good. Right? As long as that feels okay for you. And then whenever you're ready, you can come back. Right? And
But
so what you're asking to answer your question and what you
yeah,
want
yeah.
is how does somebody not talk about something and process it? And it really is, there's a few ways that we can do it, is that we can just sense and feel. Right. And our senses and feelings take us to things.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It takes us
Mm-hmm.
to memories, it takes us to experiences. We can process without having to cognitively process.
Right.
Right. It's kind of getting back in tune with our nervous system and being okay with our nervous system. The same way intuitive eating is getting back in touch with your hunger fullness.
Right.
getting in touch with your intuitive knowledge.
Right.
That's what somatic work does. It gets you back in touch with your intuitive knowledge with your nervous system, right? Way back when you were 1.5 years old, crying was okay, yelling was okay, or hopefully,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Or even if it's not at that point. So imagine a newborn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where they have no, no ability to talk,
Right.
right? They could be cranky, they could be gazzy, they can be crying, they can be happy,
Right.
they can feel the fullness of whatever that feeling is for them, and they're totally accepted,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's totally okay, right? So we're kind of reprogramming our nervous system a little bit, or getting more in touch with our nervous system and being okay to be with our nervous system. I don't know if I totally
Yes,
to
that totally makes sense. But my question that's coming up for me is that, let's say like let's say in this particular like demo, um you said that like I was able to say, could I stay in the sadness, can I stay, can I, right? So that is from cognitive, that for me at least is from my years in cognitive therapy, because I've
right,
done cognitive therapy, a lot of it.
right.
And I am have an analytic brain, so I'm always like analyzing my thoughts and behaviors, for
Yeah,
better or for worse.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, somebody who's coming to, would you say that like you could still do somatic, like not hands in hands with cognitive work, or you learn, like somebody might learn to do the, sensing, feeling, working through, and then like, how do you think that usually plays out?
Some people could come in not connected to their sensing feeling at all, and that's okay too, right? It's little bits and pieces. It's not that somebody has to be in a certain place,
Hmm.
right? Our goal is to work towards being okay with the sensing and feeling. If you're not
Right.
sensing and feeling, that's okay, right?
Right.
Everybody's journey is going to look different. And that was only one piece of what somatic work could do,
Right. I know. It's
right?
fascinating. I can't wait for
It's
people to learn
yeah,
more.
yeah. Because I can tell you in 3 lines, a whole three words, all of what's coming up for me, right? And I don't need to know anything, really,
Hmm.
nothing, right? It could be processing,
What was that?
and somebody could be doing a process,
Uh-huh.
right? So I might ask them, can you summarize like what's coming up for you in a few words, right? Would it be okay if I repeat that back to you, right? And just by repeating it to them, it brings up a whole wave of emotion,
Right.
and they're able to be with it. They can ground themselves. They can stay with it for as long as possible, right?
Yeah.
And that is a process, right? It's relearning in that way. Or it could be that somebody's just sensing and not feeling. Um, and we can work with that too. Of, I feel like I'm repeating myself again and back to that place of like being okay and slowly starting to feel again, right? Again, in whatever, there's a analogy that we use in somatic work, or at least with my supervisor. She uses this, and we're always careful with the pacing and the dosing.
My supervisor also uses that with food.
Okay, right? So I'm going to use this analogy of like, we've all done this as kids, right? Taking like baking soda and vinegar and pouring it together and having that explosion. And it's so much fun, right? To watch. In real life, the explosions are not fun,
Right.
right? But that if let's say I have a cup of vinegar and a cup of baking soda and I need to get one into the other, right? If I pour the whole thing, I'm going to have an explosion. But if I take tiny, tiny little bits of that baking soda and I put a little drop into the beaker, right? I'm going to have a little fizzle and then it's going to calm down. And we continue to do this,
Hmm.
right? I could take a little bit, put it in, have the fizzle and calm down. And
Uh-huh.
eventually I'm going to get the entire cup into the other cup
Uh-huh.
without the explosion.
It's interesting.
That's what we do in somatic work, right? So that's why it's different than traditional, like what we talk, like talk therapy, narrative therapy, and that we have to talk, we have to get to the bottom of it, right? Which for some people, that's so dysregulating,
Yeah.
right? And it's so painful,
Yeah.
right? And so kind of to bring it full circle of like this person who was able to work through the food and the what it brought up for them. You know, it could be that they did in some sort of process that dosing by little bits,
Right.
right? And so whatever food brought up for them is no longer there because they're okay
Right.
with where their nervous system goes, or their nervous system may not be as triggered
Right.
by looking at food or by, I don't know, you know, you could give it a scenario,
By
walking
being
into
with
a grocery
someone who's
store.
always on a diet and talking about their diet and asking you there and
Yeah,
how everyone's complimenting them in front of you. That's
yeah,
extremely triggering for most people, you know,
yeah,
who are doing it, who are trying not to diet.
right, right,
I'll just tell you why. I have to go in 2 minutes, but in
sure,
terms of like this work being revolutionary, um, in conjunction with intuitive eating is because, um, first of all, there's two principles that I call like the emotional principles, which is challenging the food police and coping with your emotions with kindness. And so when we get up to those principles, first I teach clients about their physical symptoms of hunger and fullness and ghrelin and leptin and the hormones that are secreted when you feel those things and the natural rhythm of your body. Most people feel hungry every 2 to 3 hours. You could feel it in your stomach, you could feel it in your head, like all that like inner, you know, biology that they may not know because whatever, they weren't taught it, or dieting turned off that system. And then when we get to the emotional principles, I tell them now that you really can mostly um recognize physical hunger, physical fullness. Now, when you have an urge to eat and you know you're not physically hungry, we could try to figure out if it is emotional and what emotion is coming up and learn to actually deal with that emotion. And of course, I'm not a therapist, but what I teach the clients, and it often very much resonates, is that many of us were told not to feel. We were punished for feeling, or we were not
yeah,
allowed to feel. So just allowing the feeling to be, which is like really painful for people who have never done it. And I'm like definitely not a therapist. So I can't really do that. I could explain that to them and like teach them that in a small dose.
mm-hmm.
But I think that that's why like somatic really spoke to me because the feelings are so big, like feeling like you don't fit in because you're fat, um feeling like no matter how little you eat, you'll never be skinny, and like feeling like it's your fault and people telling you that it's your fault. Like, you know how painful that is? Like it's extremely, extremely
So
painful. So
painful, so painful. And what I'm going to add to what you said is that a lot of times people feel their feelings in its fullness, not realizing that they don't have to feel it all at once,
wow, for
right?
sure.
Like
Yeah,
it's not that I feel or I don't feel, right?
right.
There's a continuum, um, and there's a lot in between, right? And so that I can feel as much as it feels okay for me to feel right now, and then I can take a break. And when I'm ready, I can feel again, and then I can take a break, right? And I can work my way up to feeling its intensity, but that I don't need to either be yes or no, on or off,
Right. It's not black
right?
and white.
Exactly, right? And just like you were able to say, like, for the purpose of this, I wasn't able to feel the fullness. That was okay, right? And so somebody in a restaurant with a bunch of people who are talking about diets,
Yeah.
right? It's not that I need to feel, I need to sit in it,
Right. Right.
right? I can notice how I'm feeling. And then I can say, wow, this is really painful. And then I'm going to address this more when I get home, when I'm in a safe space where I can feel more fully. and allow it to be, knowing that I have the supports around me or things around me that remind me about who I am, where I am, right? Because there's a whole nother piece that, like, oh, we'll have to spend more time talking
I
about.
know, let's
But
do a
then
part three.
there's attachments in this.
Okay, we have to do a part three. I'm sorry.
There's a whole nother, like, my supervisor gives it a week-long training on just attachment, right? And that the people around us are going to evoke different things, right?
Sure.
Based on the past, based on current, based on future, based on, right? And that could bring up a lot of feelings for us. So just leaving it at that, but knowing that we don't have to feel in the moment, the intensity,
Right.
right? I can address it to what is appropriate for that moment and know that I can come back to it.
I'm just going to add one more thing to that, and then we can wrap up that a lot of clients, people, whatever, they say that, like, the whole day they're fine. They eat regularly, they eat foods they like, and then still they're binging at 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, which is like for the busy moms that I counsel, it's usually like, I just did bedtime. I just, blah, 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 right? And it's like, because you don't, if you're like in the middle of a lunch meeting at work and somebody triggers you, it's probably not the best time to start crying. So like talk about protection, right? Like talk about like self-regulating. But if you don't deal with it later, like, so you're going to have something that probably will surface, and then you're going to be like, where's the chocolate if you don't have this
Absolutely.
pill?
Guilty as charged. Right?
No, we
Like,
all are. We all are.
we all are. We all are. Like, stressful day. I didn't have time to go to the gym, da, 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 and I'm tired and I'm exhausted and I'm looking for the sugar because I need to finish my paperwork. And
Yeah.
right. And we're just like, oh my gosh, I just finished, like, a chunk of swimmers. Like, yeah, they're great. But
Yeah, they're delicious.
also, like, you also feel like, at least I feel yuck when I'm just like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I just ate like a whole lot of that and that does not feel good right now.
Right. And in
Right.
terms of dosing, sometimes five feels great, you know?
Right.
Does that make sense? Like
I'm talking about
sometimes,
way more than 5.
no, but I'm not talking about that. I'm saying it's not always quote unquote bad to do emotional eating. And sometimes it's actually great. Like if you're like, okay, when I get that need for sugar and um, I have like 5 pieces of candy, like I've done this with clients, like, okay, like, okay, after bedtime, 5 pieces of candy, like proactively, they like love it. And sometimes they don't
Right.
eat it. Pretty
Right.
cool.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's the knowledge of, like you say, like, compassionately,
Right.
like, I know now that I've, done some work in intuitive eating is that when I'm reaching for that candy and it's 11:30 at night and really, like, I want to go to bed,
Right.
but I'm tired, but I need to get through and I need to plow through. I'm like, okay, of course I'm reaching for sugar. I'm
Right.
tired. I need to pick me up. I need,
Right.
like, a shot of, like, adrenaline. And so of
Right.
course I'm craving sugar.
Right.
Okay.
For sure.
That was okay. So I went through X, Y, and Z. Well, it got me through my paperwork that I need to do,
It's true. It
you
really is
know?
true.
And then I can the next day be like, okay, that didn't feel great. How am I reworking this? What do I need to
Right.
take out of my day? What do I need to put into my day?
For sure.
Right. But it's not beating myself up for what was,
Yeah.
right? And going back to how could I can't believe I
Yeah.
did that, whatever.
Right.
It's okay, let's be proactive and figure out, like, that is not working for me.
Right.
Right. That's not helpful. Or that is really helpful right now. And I know that things are going to get calmer and then I'm not going to need that. Right.
Right.
My schedule ease up or whatever it is.
Right.
And I'm okay with that for now.
Okay, I have to wrap up now, but this
Not a
was
problem.
amazing. We'll do
Okay. Well,
we'll do round number 3. I
okay.
know you
Always
have a
a
lot of free
pleasure.
time, so just kidding. Okay, yeah, it was great. Thank you so much, Elisheva, and I'll put all your information in the show notes if people want to reach out and book an appointment with you.
Amazing. And I'm happy you're able to send this out to people because it's such foundational information that we don't get.
Yeah, totally. I hope it's
Amazing.
helpful. Okay, have a great
Yeah.
day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.